In the US, everything was loud. Advertising, advice, expectations, comparisons. Every day was like background music that could not be turned off. Every voice around me seemed to be a signal. You have to be different. I arrived with the hope of freedom, but instead I found myself in the noise. Noise that dictated how to live, what to wear, what to eat, what to think, who to be. I lost myself not because I didn't know who I was, but because I couldn't hear myself. My inner voice was quiet, inaudible, uncomfortable. I would wake up and immediately check my phone, not because I wanted to, but because I was afraid of falling behind. I lived in a rhythm that was not mine. I ate because it was right. I worked because it was necessary. I was silent because it was more convenient. And one day I realized, I am not living. React. I respond. I adapt. It happened in the subway. I was sitting among people staring at their screens, and suddenly I felt, I don't want to know what others think. I want to know what I think. It wasn't enlightenment but fatigue. A deep, quiet fatigue from the noise that doesn't let you breathe. I came home, turned off my phone, sat on the floor and just listened. Not to music, not to the news, but to myself. And I heard, I want silence. I want the truth. I want to be, not to answer. It was a beginning, not a change but a pause. A pause in which my voice finally had space. I am Valentine, and I am learning to listen to myself. Because the noise of the world doesn't know who I am. And I know. I was just silent for a long time. The first days without a phone were strange. Not heroic, not romantic, strange. I would wake up and not know what to do. Before, I would immediately check my messages, news, the weather forecast, the dollar exchange rate, the opinions of others. Now I would just lie down. And I listened to the floor creaking in the room, the dog barking outside the window, something moving inside me but not speaking. The silence was not peace. It was a mirror. And in this mirror I saw myself. Not confident, not strong, not ready. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know how to be without external noise. And it was scary. I went to the park. Without headphones. Without music. Just walking. And suddenly I felt how much I was used to the background. To the fact that something should sound. Something should fill the space. Without it I seemed to dissolve. People around me walked quickly, talked loudly, looked at their phones. And I walked slowly. And I felt like a stranger. I sat down on a bench and asked myself, what are you afraid of? And the answer did not come immediately. It came through my body, through the tension in my shoulders, through the tightness in my chest, through the desire to escape. I was afraid of being useless. I was afraid that without noise I was nobody. That my voice was uninteresting. That my silence was an emptiness. I went home and wrote myself a letter. Not on Instagram. Not in notes. In paper. Valentine, you don't have to be loud to be real. Your silence is not weakness. It's a space where you can be reborn. I reread that letter every day. And every time it sounded different. 'Cause I was changing. Slowly. Imperceptibly. But changing. I began to notice things I had previously ignored. The way coffee smells. The way the light falls on the table. The way my voice sounds when I speak not for anyone but for myself. I began to write. Not for likes. But so as not to lose myself. Silence became my friend. But not right away. First an enemy. Then a challenge. And only later a space where I could be real. I am Valentine. And I am learning not to run away from myself. Because in silence I am not alone. I am alive. I was silent for a long time. Not because I had nothing to say. But because I did not believe that I had the right to speak. In a world where every post is a request for attention, I was afraid of being superfluous. I was afraid that my voice was uninteresting. That my thoughts were unformatted. That my truth was not a trend. But silence did its thing. Cleared the space. And in this space for the first time I felt, I want to speak. Not to shout. Not to convince. But simply to be heard myself. I sat down at the table, opened my laptop, and wrote the first text. Not a post. Not an article. But something between a letter and a confession. I don't know if anyone needs this, but I do. Because if I don't say it now, I'll get lost again. It was a text about the fear of being myself. About how easy it is to become a shadow when the whole world is a spotlight. About how important it is to stay alive, even if no one applauds. I didn't publish it right away. I reread it, edited it, I doubted it, and then I recorded a video. Just on my phone. No editing. No filters. I sat on the floor in an old t-shirt and spoke. I spoke about how I was tired of being comfortable. That I no longer wanted to live by other people's scripts. That my voice is not a product. It's a part of me. I didn't expect a reaction. I just wanted to be honest. And the reaction came. Not in likes, but in messages. From people who wrote, "I feel this way too. I'm silent too. I'm afraid to be myself too." I realized my truth is not unique. But it is alive. And that's why it's important. I started recording videos regularly. Not as content, but as a ritual. As a way to stay in touch with myself. Each video was like a step. A step towards myself. A step towards a world where you can be authentic. I am Valentine. And I'm no longer silent. 'Cause my voice is not noise. It's silence that speaks. I knew this moment would come. The moment when someone would say, "Why are you doing this? Who needs this? You're too emotional. This isn't serious." And it did. After one of the videos, simple, honest, no nonsense, I got a message. Not from a stranger. From someone I once considered a friend. "Valentine, you're overreacting. Looks weird. People don't want to hear about your feelings. This isn't content." I read it. And I fell silent. Not forever. But for a few days for sure. 'Cause it hurt. Not because I wasn't ready. But because I was alive. And the living hurt. I began to doubt myself. Maybe I should really be more reserved. Maybe it's better to say correctly than sincerely. Maybe the world isn't ready. I sat down on the floor again. Where my silence had begun. And I asked myself, do you want to be accepted or authentic? The answer was simple. I want to be authentic. Even if I don't like it. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it's weird. Because I was already comfortable. And it almost killed me. I recorded a new video. Not as an answer. But as a continuation. I'm not content. I'm a person. And if my emotionality scares someone, it's not my problem. It just means I'm no longer playing a role. This video didn't go viral. But it did. For me. For those who were also afraid of being too much. I started getting new messages. From those who wrote. I was also silent because I was afraid of appearing weak. Your weirdness is my freedom. Thank you for not breaking down. I realized. Criticism is not the end. It's just noise. And my voice is a silence that doesn't need approval. I am Valentine. And I no longer change to be accepted. I change to be myself. For a long time I thought that being myself was loneliness. That the truth is a path alone. That if I don't play a role, no one will stay by my side. But something changed. After one of the videos, a quiet, simple one about how I learned not to apologize for my emotions, a girl wrote to me. Her name was Leah. She lived in Seattle. And she wrote as if we had known each other for a long time. I don't know how you do it, but your words are like my thoughts that I was afraid to say. We started texting. Not about the weather. Not about TV shows. But about what hurts. About what is important. About what cannot be said out loud. If you live in noise. Leah also went through fatigue. Because of the role of successful. Because of the fear of being too sensitive. And we talked. 4 hours. Without masks. Without filters. 'Twas new. Not romance. But togetherness. Like two silences that finally met. Then Jay appeared. A guy from Austin. He wrote music that no one listened to, because it was too slow. But it sounded like the truth. We made a video together. Spoke. He played. And it was not about the format. But about breathing. I began to see that the world is not only noise. That there are people who also listen to themselves. Who don't want to be loud. Who want to be real. We created a small circle. No rules. No leader. Just a space where you can be. We called it quiet. Because it was in the silence that we found ourselves. I was no longer afraid to be strange. Because there were those around me who also chose the truth. And in this truth we were together. I am Valentine. And I am no longer alone. Because silence is not isolation. It is an invitation. To those who are also listening. I knew that sooner or later I would have to return. Not to the noise. But to the connections that remained in it. Old friends. Relatives. Acquaintances with whom I once spoke as it should be. I didn't want to convince. I didn't want to prove that my path was the right one. I just wanted to be. The way I had become. The first was when I met Alex. We used to work together. He was fast, loud, always on topic. Came to the cafe. Without a phone. Without a plan. Alex immediately started. What, you disappeared? You're not posting anything. Is everything okay? Smiled. I'm just listening to myself. He laughed. You've always been a little strange. But now you've completely lost it. I didn't answer. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. Because I'm no longer playing a role. And if my silence is uncomfortable, I won't change it. Then there was a conversation with my mother. She was worried. You've become withdrawn. We don't recognize you. I said. I just don't live to be recognized anymore. I live to be myself. It was hard. Because love isn't always about understanding. Sometimes it's about expecting. And I learned not to respond to him with a role. I didn't convince. I didn't argue. I just stayed. And something changed. Slowly. Imperceptibly. Left. Because they were uncomfortable. Because my silence was like a mirror in which they didn't want to see themselves. And some stayed. Not because they understood. But because they felt, I am real. I learned to be there without losing myself. I learned to speak without convincing. I learned to love without playing a role. I am Valentine. And I no longer come back to be comfortable. I come back to be honest. I wake up without anxiety. Not because everything is perfect. But because I no longer live in pursuit. My morning is not a to-do list. It's the coffee I brew slowly. It's the light that falls on the table. It's the silence in which I ask myself, what do I need today? I no longer work where I have to be efficient. I found a small studio where I record videos for those who are also tired. Not motivational speeches, but the truth. About fatigue. About searching. About silence. My day is not about productivity. It's about presence. Walk. I read. I answer emails that don't come every day, but are always real. I no longer buy things to fill a void. I buy what serves me. What doesn't scream. That which does not force you to be someone else. My home is simple. Without excess. Without noise. I learned to cook. Not for photos. But for myself. And each dish is a gesture of care. Not ostentatious. But quiet. I am no longer afraid to be slow. Because in slowness there is depth. Because in pause there is life. I meet people who do not ask, what do you do? They ask, how do you feel? And this is a different quality of connection. I do not plan the future as a project. I live day by day. And every day is like an answer to an inner voice. I am Valentine. And my life no longer screams. Sounds. Quietly. Honesty. I didn't become a guru. I didn't write a book. I didn't create a course. I just keep living. In a rhythm that doesn't need proof. Sometimes people write to me. How did you do it? I don't know how to answer. Because it didn't work. Happen. Slowly. Because of fatigue. Because of a pause. Because of a choice. I don't teach others. Just share. My morning. My fear. My voice, which has been silent for a long time. I record videos. Not as content. But as a gesture. As an invitation to silence. Sometimes I talk about pain. Sometimes about joy. but always about the truth. I don't know who is listening to me. And that's not the main thing. The main thing is that I'm no longer silent. I meet people who are also tired. I don't tell them what to do. I just say, I've been there. And I chose myself. Talk. Not about success, but about freedom. I see silence becoming space. Not isolation, but togetherness. I'm no longer afraid to be uncomfortable, because my discomfort is my truth. And if it scares someone, I won't hide it. I am Valentine, and I'm no longer arguing. Just am. And if you're reading this, maybe you're ready to be too. Not loud, but alive.